everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News website. We've got another of our executive interviews with mining company execs, and today we have Darwin Green from HighGold. And one thing I've always prided myself on was my ability to recognize talent early and recognize good projects before the crowds have done that. And in Darwin, he's got both of those things. I'm not the only one to recognize his talents a long time ago. We used to work together, and he's got his hands on a couple of projects that I think could be company makers. Darwin, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Well, thanks, Allan. It's always great to catch up with you.
You know, one of those guys we used to work with together has now become a household name, is Bob Singh. And he was the guy who put together what was taken over for $1.8 billion in Great Bear. In fact, funny story, I'm the one who got him the job at Great Bear. He was out of work back in the end of the last bear market. And I said, well, come on board. We need help. And, you know, with your friendship with Perry English, I think we could put something together there. And that's exactly what they did. And why I bring up his name now is early when they made that discovery, they got some attention, and then they kind of fell off. The valuation fell down, and then they took off again, and the rest is history. And I'm kind of seeing that same parallel with your project in Alaska. But recently you've had news out on your project in Ontario. So why don't we unravel that news that you put out in Ontario? I think you can share a screen there to sort of give people a picture tells a story thing.
Yeah, totally. Well, thanks for that, Allan. And it is a pretty good intro there. And I mean, it is a great story. You know, I'm Bob there. I know that time too. I mean, he was in my office, about a month or so ago, talking to Garfield and myself. And at one point, he was thinking about getting out of the industry. I mean, he's a fantastic geologist. And Garfield said to him, you know, that would be a loss for the industry. And he ended up not making that decision. And I'm sure he has no regrets about sticking around. He's done very well. And
I think I kind of helped in that. I said, Bob, he said, well, I don't know if I know anything about diamonds, because we had a diamond exploration company and Great Bear. And I said, well, you know, I can help you get familiar with the diamonds, and we need a qualified person. And also, I think that Perry English angle should be used. So I'm sure glad, because he's a hell of a geologist and really talented with the computer and modeling.
Yeah, no, he is. He is a very talented guy for sure. And, you know, all the credit to him and the team there for what they've done.
Yeah, but we all worked together when we were no names. Now he's a big name, and I think you're going to be a big name, Darwin, with what you got on your hands.
Well, thanks for the support for sure. We'll tell you what, I'll jump into. I thought before jumping right into the results, I just provide a little bit of backstory context for what we've been doing in Ontario. So, you know, it's an area that is an important, you know, area that we think we can create value for the company and for our shareholders. And we had a strategic plan to consolidate land around the former Croesus mine. I've talked with you about that in the past. And so we spent about 2 years doing that, consolidating this larger land package, which really liberated that area to be able to be explored, because it didn't make any sense to get too aggressive with the exploration with these itty bitty property positions. So these results that we released here this week are from that, our first major program since doing that consolidation. And we had multiple targets that we were testing. Some were close to the historic Croesus mine, and we had some success that we've talked about already. This is from an area that's separate. It's about 3 kilometers away or to the west of that mine. And I will bring up a screen to talk about it.
Good. I mean, that's a phenomenal high grade old mine there, and that's a good place to look for more gold.
Agreed. You know, and the so where we are here, I've kind of zoomed right into. Actually, maybe I'll go up just as a little bit of a setting for you. We've talked about this before, but this is a little over 100 kilometers east-west. It's kind of the greater Timmins camp, with Timmins proper sitting in here, and the sort of eastern half of the camp, which sometimes also goes by the name of the sort of Golden Highway area, is an area that's really come into the spotlight of late, and that's due to the activity of some of our neighbors. So Moneta Gold has both the Garrison and Golden Highway projects that they refer to collectively as the Tower Gold Project, and combined there's close to 8.5 million ounces there that's growing. Most of that's open pittable ounces, bulk tonnage style gold. A little closer to us, but you know, all of these are very close, but immediately next door to us is what's called the Fen Gib. A company called Mayfair Gold has that. We really like that asset as well. It's 2 million ounces at about 0.9 grams per ton gold, and it's another one of these bulk tonnage deal, and both of these groups are drilling these very hard right now, and you should expect to see the resources grow. And there's a lot of the sort of analyst community that expects that at some point these assets will be held by a senior.
And then there's also the Fox, that's McEwen's project.
No, that's exactly right. So the Black Fox mine is immediately on the other side of us. And so, you know, these are, you know, 1,500 meters from the sort of the gold deposit to the edge of our project. Same as with Fen Gib, it's about 1,500 meters to our claim boundary. We also have a 1% NSR on a block of claims that sit right in here. Anyhow, that's all backstory for you. I'm now going to zoom in.
Before you zoom out there, something interesting popped into my mind. The structural story on the Timmins proper, it's all in fairly close proximity to that big fault. And it gets a little more complex faulting over in the eastern part, but a lot of times that can be good because those are the deep cracks in the earth that become the conduits for gold-bearing fluids to make their way to close to surface.
Yeah, no, that's correct. And so, you know, you want to be within the influence. You don't necessarily have to be right on those structural breaks, but you want to be in close proximity to them.
Well, you can see that in
the better. Yeah.
The Timmins area, all of those several of those stars are to the north of, just slightly north of the main fault.
Yeah, well, actually, that's an interesting sub-story, as we see that there's actually a lineament of these guys, a trend, if you will, that's projecting out this way, that's well north and outboard of the main Dester Porcupine. And we see that projection of that trending right onto our project. And what's interesting out here is actually the fold hinge. There's most of the stratigraphy is sort of parallel to these faults, these main faults, but in this area, there's a really tight knot of sort of folded mafic ultramafic stratigraphy and the axis of that is the same orientation of this.
Now you're going to make me bring up Great Bear again, because that's what got them off to the races, was a similar kind of story.
Yeah, true. You know, sort of an overlooked break, if you will, or structural break that they just started drilling and didn't stop. And so this is an area, you know, I won't spend too much of today talking about it, but it is an area that we really like, and we expect to be getting to the drills on later this year at some point. It's mostly covered by a shallow lake and an overburden, and that's why it's gone so underexplored. This area over here has gone underexplored largely because it's been a fragmented patchwork of different owners that dates back to the early 1900s. So just zooming in a little closer on it. So I'll work, you know, just referencing the neighboring deposits again, and it doesn't guarantee by any stretch that we have the same types of deposits on our property, but it probably increased the odds of the chance of finding similar mineralization on our property. And what you see here are the footprints of those deposits based on the public disclosure by those companies. Fen Gib in particular sits both within and north of the Pipestone Fault. We control quite a lot of that. Our focus has been on the volcanic stratigraphy, really between the Munro and the Pipestone, and we've got a lot of it. And yeah, so this, as I say, is about 3 kilometers away from the Croesus. We reported some really nice results, actually, just north and sort of northwest of the Croesus earlier, about a month ago. But this is really brand new for us. And we see it as something that's kind of a likeness, if you will, to something like a fen gib. It has similar attributes. Well, we're certainly the sub interval of about 60 odd meters. I think it was almost 0.8 grams per ton gold, is getting very close to the resource grade of some of these deposits. This is early days. It's our first drill hole, first 2 drill holes into it. And what's really exciting about it is we're hitting these big broad widths of sort of disseminated to fine veinlet scale gold, that kind of classic bulk tonnage gold. And it's a type of mineralization that previously had never been seen or identified on the property. Reality is nobody's looked for it. And it's in addition to that extreme high grade gold that we're also exploring. So it's a tremendous value add and validation in our view of this property's potential. It's very, very early days for us. So we have more holes to come, and we will obviously be coming back and hitting this up with some additional drilling.
From a structural perspective, you've got all of these deposits along the Dester Porcupine. They seem to be also associated with some cross faulting, as well as the Garrison is at the intersection sort of the Dester and the Pipestone. But I can see on your project that you've got that Pipestone fault going through the property and some cross structures. And that's where your star is at.
Yeah. No, you're right. In fact, we did a big structural study, and that we did identify what we were calling these D2 fault structures, these northeast trending structural zones and veins, and that's exactly what the Croesus is. We have several of these kind of parallel veins. This area we had less information. There was some historic drilling there. It was done in the mid 90s. There were shallow holes, and they only sampled little bits of the core, right? So we knew there was some gold mineralization, but it wasn't complete, sampling all the way through the zones. We had a hunch there might be some bulk tonnage potential. That was why we went there, in this particular area, to see if, and we were pleasantly surprised. It was much broader and wider than we had expected. So great start here, but part of the rationale was, okay, where along this, this sort of pipestone corridor do you focus? Do you just kind of drill the whole trend along here? Or do you pick an area where maybe you got one of these cross faults nearby? And in this case, we had one of these cross structures, D2, with evidence of gold at surface. And this thing does come right to surface. We basically collared into mineralization. There's very thin layer of overburden here. So it's an at surface to near surface discovery of very significant bulk tonnage gold. We're just. And
how many holes did you get into that target, Darwin?
We got seven holes. Okay. Yeah. So we've released 2. We have 5 more to come, and then I think we've got a total of 20 to 24 holes to come total on the property. We have, at this scale, it's hard to see. This is quite a large property. I don't know what there's 4 kilometers there for you, but we got some targets out this way. We've got some targets in here. We had some targets.
So the Monroe fault, it looks like you've got about 20 clicks of it, and Pipestone, you've got probably 10-ish or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. And we actually have this really neat, we did a big IP survey as well. They weren't able to complete all of it before spring thaw happened, but there's an intrusive sitting out here that looks similar to kind of some of the intrusives you see close to Fen Gib, but it's right on a sort of east-west sort of structural trend. So we're pretty keen to get after that. It's never been drilled. There are some cyanites kicking around close at hand. We didn't get them right in the zone that we drilled here. Those are good things to see as well at this new Argus zone. So yeah, it's, stay tuned for more results basically. And we're really just getting going here. So this is,
and I think that's something that gets lost on a lot of investors in this business, Darwin. You don't sort of poke a few holes in and all of a sudden find a mine. These things are built upon learning more knowledge and then moving forward from there. And that's a similar story to what you have in Alaska. And I think that this is maybe a couple years behind your Alaska stuff, but heck of a good start.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, the asset value has just increased tremendously by being able to identify that we have this type of mineralization in addition to the already established past production there. So but it doesn't, doesn't happen overnight. It takes time and work, and we like to think a lot about our data, take time, look at that data, and get back out there and drill it. But it's one that can also transition quickly with the right kind of results. You can grow, create value, shareholder value very quickly in this.
And the nice thing about this is you're not really seasonally affected. You can pretty much work year round there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's a little bit of a shoulder there when things melt that kind of shuts you down for a bit. But other than that, yeah, you got the ability to do year-round work. So yeah, we're really happy with this. We think the market hasn't really quite caught on to it yet. And it's probably because it's a hair lower grade that, if it was maybe 1 to 1.5 grams over those widths, you might have seen more response. Also happened to be one of the bigger sell-offs in the broader markets. So you created a bit of a liquidity event for, what was a very tough market yesterday when the news came out.
Well, sometimes it takes a day or two for people to wrap their head around it because, these are the kind of targets that make for open pits. And I think it's fair to say you guys are off to a good start and more to come.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I agree. And I just can't help but think everything you see in this field of view is an area that's going to become more active. The secret to why it's got to where it is right now has been consolidation to date. Mineta had acquired O3, which gave them the Garrison assets, or acquired O3's Garrison asset, which really gave this project the scale it wanted. There just aren't that many projects with this kind of endowment in a tier 1 jurisdiction out there that aren't held by a senior. And I think you're going to see Fen Gib keep growing, and we want to be part of that conversation, and have that ability of both high grade and low grade is extremely attractive. We have both on our product, not just the low grade. We think, I think the map's going to look a lot different in 3 or 4 years' time from what it looks like today.
And probably a lot more excitement. Hopefully, you guys are one of the ones creating it.
That's the plan. That's the plan for sure.
Okay, so now what got the market's attention over the last couple of years has been your project in Alaska. At one time, you had a valuation close to $3 a share. You're down to 90 cents. By the way, I think your pop today up 21%, 16 cents to 90 cents has to do with people absorbing the information from what you have in Ontario and kind of getting optimism towards that. But the big story for you guys is your Alaska stuff. And let's touch on that and sort of the highlights of milestones coming up.
Yeah, I mean, as we've been talking for a while, that we've got some metallurgy that we should have the results here very soon. We'll get those to the market. Maybe not metallurgy is not typically a market mover, but it's a really nice piece that gives people comfort about the asset. We're comfortable with it, so we'll have that soon. That will follow very shortly afterwards with the resource estimate itself. We're very much looking forward to that, to establish what we've been able to achieve over the last 2 years. It's obviously just a moment in time because we're getting right back out there drilling and expanding the zones that we have. So I think both of those are going to be important news items. But the drill's firing back up where the real excitement sits, and that's going to be targeting right now, probably mid-June. We should have results out, or not results, and news out soon on the scope and scale of that program. So we're looking forward to that. We're looking at ways to try to really shorten the timeline for the turnaround on our assays. Looking very seriously at actually putting a prep facility on site in camp that allows you to get to the front of the queue with the analysis.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't think a lot of people know about. A lot of there's a lot of talk about delays in getting assays, but I don't think a lot of people understand that the reason is that the bottleneck is in the prep. It's not in the assaying, it's in the preparation. You put so much material in there, they don't have the people to prep that material to then do the assays. So good on you. I think that's a brilliant decision, Darwin.
Yeah, and we've got some proper QA, QC, external consultants, but we'll see. 95% sure we'll be proceeding with that. So, and that allows you much more real-time responsiveness in the field. You can get, the shareholders can get results, and they can follow what you're doing. We can turn around and follow up on good results and get more done in a season than you would otherwise. So, but anyhow, yeah, that's looking forward to just getting back up there drilling, and it's not very far away now.
Let's take a bit of a bigger view of that. So you've got the resource area that you're looking at doing an updated resource on. But then what caught the market's imagination is your new, what's it called?
DC, Difficult Creek. Yep.
Difficult Creek. And at one side of the mountain is where you hit, and it looks like that horizon projects through the mountain and out into the other side of the mountain. And there's leakage above in the mountain. So it suggests that that's probably a fair analysis. Is that going to be one of your high priorities?
For sure. I think in terms of sort of transformational impact, while continue to grow the deposit itself, the main deposit we have is very important. We plan to be doing just that. I think from a real kind of shift in valuation, being able to demonstrate that those intersections are going to turn into a deposit, and possibly a very large one if we can link it to what we see on the other side of the mountain. What I know for sure is the soil samples and the float boulder samples that we're seeing at surface are coming from a bedrock source, and that bedrock source is likely very high grade, because those soils and rocks are higher grade than the soils and rocks we see anywhere else on the property, even higher than we see on the deposit. Yeah, and we've drilled good ore bodies, or mineral deposits where we've sampled elsewhere. So odds are there's something there. Well, not odds are, there is something there. We can't know how big it is until we actually drill it. But the real, so that's really exciting. But then the opportunity for it to potentially link to DC over a kilometer away, which geologically is reasonable, and it's our thesis that we're testing, is could be big, could be very big.
And do you have any idea of how thick that horizon could be, and what pumped up the fluids to get to that horizon?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a horizon component where it wants to be, and I think there's got to be some structural trends that are controlling it to some degree. So it's not going to be total pancake, forever, like some of these big sediment-hosted copper deposits, like Friedland's thing in the Congo. But it's there will be a structural route to it that we think we have the axis that we're on, and it's going to pancake out along that trend within that horizon. How thick it is, we don't know. We do have evidence of several tens of meters of lower grade mineralization haloing in the stuff close to what we drilled at DC. So it's not unreasonable to see that as well. But I want to be careful about not being too forward projecting with this, or speculative. But
I like to wave arms, Darwin.
There's great high grade gold. What we hit there at DC was that OPAX group labeled it as the third best drill hole anywhere last year in terms of grade times width. So that's a pretty darn good starting point to be stepping out from, and seeing if we can find more of that right next to it, and just keep growing from that. Meanwhile, we're going to work on the other end and work our way back towards it. So it's lots to work on. I think
it's fair to say that that's pretty good indications of a powerful plumbing system, mineralizing system.
No doubt. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's not often. I mean, what we drilled at the main deposit, those 50 to 100 meters plus of 10 to 20 grams gold. I mean, those by themselves are outstanding, unbelievable drill intersections. So to be able to have something of this kind of tenor and caliber 4 kilometers away is, it bodes well for the future of the project, in my view.
And then you've got other targets. There's a potential for a VMS element there, and more discovery potential as well.
Yeah, there's a few things for sure that we're working on. Our general approach is, okay, grow the main deposit, turn DC Milkbone into a second deposit or third, depending how things may be, and then keep a pipeline of other prospects coming in that they'll be the next DC and the next JT kind of thing. That's our approach, and we think there's potential for that. You always need a little good luck along the way, obviously, but it's got the potential for sure.
Well, and the last thing I wanted to talk about is the valuation is below what a lot of the smart money put their money into the deal at. So that gives current investors an opportunity to buy on a bargain. But always when I look at bargain opportunities, it also needs catalysts. And you've got what sounds like a pipeline of catalysts for the remainder of this year.
Yeah. And the cash to fund them, right? So things aren't look like bargains, but if the company needs to raise money, they're really in a tough spot because they can't move things. So you need the catalysts and you need the money to be able to deliver on those catalysts. So we're in a very comfortable position despite the very unsettling markets out there. We've been given money to put into the ground to create value, and we're going to do just that. And we've got plenty of it, and we'll come out the end of the year in a very comfortable spot. And that is our intent. And you opened up by talking about us bouncing back with the market, maybe realizing the value of what we drilled, a little bit of a delayed reaction to what we drilled. I think there's some of that, but I also think fundamentally some are waking up to the incredible value story that we are right now. It's just cheap. It's really really cheap.
Well, I saw that cheapness before in a company called Orla. Famous Pierre Lassonde was putting money in at was $3 or $4, and now it's started production here in the state of Zacatecas, where I live in Mexico, and now it's 5 and change. But at one time it was trading for below his average price, and that's what I was banging the table lots.
Right. Well, same here. Yeah, I mean, we definitely have some pretty, we like our roster of shareholders. They're generally quite supportive, and for folks, the retail folks that feel like they're missing out on the financing and that sort of things, you can be comfortable getting in at a lower cost than virtually everybody else right now if you're picking it up in the market.
Well, anytime you can find a good project, good people, good share structure, and plenty of catalysts, and the investor can buy in at cheaper than the smart money that put that money in, it's rarely turned out badly for me. And I think that's where HighGold sits today.
Yeah, well, I won't argue with you.
Good, Darwin. Let's wrap it up, and we'll have a chat at the end there. Thanks a lot for joining us and telling us about what you got going on.
Yeah, my pleasure, Alan. Thanks so much for your time.
Okay, there you go, folks. Well, I kind of did my value proposition just now when I was closing off with Darwin. It ticks off all the boxes of what I look for. 2 good projects, cheap valuation, good share structure, lots of money in the bank. And the big thing is, when you find those situations, you also have to have the catalysts. And they've got catalysts, several coming up. And I think that will lead them into catalysts throughout the end of the year and into next year. So I think it's a good time to be looking at HighGold. And as always, my shows are for information purposes only. It's important to speak with your financial advisor. And I'm always a proponent of doing the homework. Go to their website, look at their corporate presentations, look at their news releases, and get on the horn. Darwin's very good at telling the story, and give him a phone call, and I'm sure he'll spend some time with you. And that's another thing I've always found of good people. They tend to want to tell their story because they have a good story to tell. So on that note, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.